You think you know British spies because of martinis and tuxedos. You do not. Forget gadgets. Forget cars. The real story is colder and way more awkward. Think about the spy who came in from the cold and tinkered Tailor soldier spy. Both ripped away the glamour and showed something ugly underneath. Not superheroes, bureaucrats, liars, tired men staring at files in gray offices. That is the MI6 most people never see, the one full of moles and betrayal and panic behind polished accents. This countdown is about those stories, the ones that hit too close to the truth. Number 9. A spy among friends. Let's start with betrayal at the highest level. This story centers on Kim Philby, no minor informant, but a senior MI6 officer trusted with secrets that shaped the Cold War. And all the while, he was passing them to Moscow, not as a caricature, not as a loud villain, but as a polished insider, charming, educated, sitting at the same tables, sharing drinks, earning trust, and quietly dismantling operations from within. The series leans into that discomfort. It doesn't rush. It lets the damage unfold slowly. Friendships fracture in real time. Philby's bond with Nicholas Elliott becomes the emotional core, and that's what makes it hit. This isn't just espionage, it's betrayal between people who believed in each other. And underneath it all is something sharper. MI6 wasn't broken by force. It was exposed, a system built on class, on familiarity, on the assumption that the right kind of person couldn't be a threat. That blind spot let the Cambridge network operate in plain sight. That's what lingers. Not the spy story, but the realization that institutions can fail quietly. Not through chaos, but through confidence. By the time Philby defects, it's not just an escape. It's an unraveling. And the most unsettling part? It never needed noise. Just trust, misplaced. Number 8. The spy who came in from the cold. If you still think spying is glamorous, this film dismantles that idea completely. Based on John le Carré's work, it feels less like fiction and more like a confession. Alec Leamas, a worn-out British agent, is ordered to stage a fake defection to East Germany. The plan sounds precise, convincing, strategic, controlled. But once it begins, that illusion collapses. Nothing about it is clean. Leamas isn't treated like a hero. He's treated like a tool, disposable. His exhaustion doesn't matter. His life doesn't matter. What matters is the outcome, winning a quiet, calculated game of deception. And that's where the film cuts deepest, because it reveals something uncomfortable. MI6 isn't operating on clear moral ground. It's operating on necessity, on reputation, on survival. There's a moment where it becomes clear that innocent lives can be sacrificed, not as a last resort, but as part of the design. That's the real cost. The intelligence world here isn't exciting. It's cold, detached. Conversations in quiet rooms carry more weight than action, and every decision feels compromised. Then the ending lands. No victory, no clarity, just the realization that both sides reflect each other more than they oppose each other. That's why it endures, because it strips away the fantasy. And what's left isn't heroic. It's human. Number 7. Operation Mincemeat. Now let us rewind to World War II. This story comes from a real British deception operation, later known as Operation Mincemeat. The plan sounds absurd. Take a corpse, dress him as a Royal Marines officer, place fake invasion documents on him, let the enemy discover it and believe the Allies will strike Greece instead of Sicily. And it worked. What this reveals about British intelligence is that espionage is often storytelling, not just codes and ciphers, but narratives, carefully constructed, painfully detailed lies. The people behind it weren't action heroes. They were planners, writers, officials debating small details, receipts, letters, personal items, to make a false identity feel real. Because if it felt real, it could change everything. The pressure was immense. If the deception failed, thousands would die. Every decision was a gamble. On intelligence wasn't certainty. It was probability. And beneath the brilliance, there's something darker. The body used belonged to a real man, someone with no say in becoming part of this plan. Victory came through manipulation, not just of the enemy, but of the dead. That's the truth this story exposes. Intelligence doesn't just uncover reality. Sometimes it creates it. And when the lie is believable enough, it can alter the course of history. Number 6. The Courier. This one feels small. That's the trick. No spectacle. No high-speed chases. Just a nervous businessman, Greville Wynn, pulled into something far beyond his control. He isn't trained. He isn't polished. He's ordinary. And that's exactly why MI6 chooses him, to carry secrets no one would suspect. His contact is Oleg Penkovsky, a Soviet officer risking everything to pass intelligence westward. And suddenly, espionage stops feeling like strategy. It feels like balance, fragile, human, easily broken. That's what the film exposes. Operations like this don't run on gadgets. They run on people, on nerves. One wrong look, one hesitation, one moment too long at a checkpoint, and everything unravels. And when it does, there's no rescue. Wynn is arrested, isolated, broken down. MI6 can't reach him because sometimes they can't. There's also the larger web, coordination with the CIA, quiet disagreements, calculated risks. It's not one agency pulling strings, it's multiple forces, each with their own stakes. But what hits hardest is the relationship. Wynn and Penkovsky become more than contacts. There's trust, understanding. And when it ends, it doesn't feel like a mission failed. It feels personal. That's the truth beneath it all. Espionage runs on human connection, and when that connection breaks, the consequences aren't strategic. They're devastating. Number 5. Red Joan. This one is quiet, almost gentle, and that's what makes it unsettling. Inspired by the real case of Melita Norwood, it follows an elderly woman who spent decades passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union. She wasn't hidden in shadows. She lived openly, worked inside British nuclear research, looked like no threat at all. And that's the point. What it exposes is complacency. British intelligence didn't fail because of complexity. It failed because of assumptions. Norwood didn't fit the image of a spy. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't desperate. She believed in what she was doing, that sharing information would prevent imbalance. That's harder to detect than greed. The story also reveals something deeper. Espionage isn't always immediate. Sometimes it lingers. Years pass, decades. Secrets move quietly while institutions assume control. That's the real fracture, not a breach, but a blind spot. Because when betrayal looks ordinary, it doesn't raise alarms. It blends in. And by the time it's seen, it's already done its work. No noise, no spectacle, just a quiet life, carrying a very long secret. Number 4. Cambridge Spies. If you want to understand how MI6 was truly exposed, this is the story. Not fiction, not exaggeration. It happened. This miniseries traces the rise of the Cambridge Five: Philby, Burgess, McLean, Blunt. Young men shaped in elite universities, recruited early, driven by ideology. They didn't sneak in. They rose through the system, quietly, efficiently, until they became the system. And that's where it turns. Philby at one point was leading counterintelligence against the Soviets. The man hunting spies was a spy himself. The series makes it clear how this was possible. MI6 functioned like a closed circle. Accent, education, connections. These were treated as proof of loyalty. Background checks were shallow because no one expected betrayal from within. That assumption created the opening, and it stayed open for years. Secrets passed, operations compromised, allies strained. Yet suspicion struggled to take hold because the accused didn't look like suspects. They looked like insiders. That's the real exposure. Not just betrayal, but a system that couldn't recognize it. When defections finally came, the damage wasn't just operational, it was institutional. Trust fractured, confidence collapsed, and the illusion of control disappeared. The series doesn't exaggerate. It shows charm, ease, normalcy. Because espionage doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it sits comfortably in the room, and no one questions it until it's too late. Number 3. A Perfect Spy. This one hits differently, because it's not about missions, it's about identity. The story follows Magnus Pym, a British intelligence officer who vanishes without warning. MI6 scrambles. Files are opened, histories examined, And what emerges isn't a single act of betrayal, but a life built on shifting truths. That's where it becomes unsettling, because it exposes something deeper about MI6. The service relies on people who can adapt, who can lie convincingly, who can become whoever the situation demands. But what happens when that stops being a skill and becomes who they are? Pym isn't a hero. He's fragile, shaped by his past, haunted by a father who taught him early how to perform, how to survive by becoming someone else. MI6 didn't create that trait. It recognized it, used it, and missed the cost. The series strips away action and replaces it with memory, layers of self-deception. You begin to see that Pym's double life didn't start in espionage. It started in childhood. That's the real fracture, because intelligence work doesn't just operate in gray areas. It creates them. MI6 isn't shown as cruel, just detached, focused on damage, not the person. When Pym disappears, the question isn't why. It's what did he compromise? That calculation feels honest. Because in this world, loyalty isn't simple, it's divided, and when those divisions collide, something breaks, usually the individual. This isn't espionage as fantasy, it's espionage as erosion, and that's far more revealing. Number 2, the whistleblower. Now we get to something raw. No Cold War glamour, no ideological speeches. Just a father who starts asking questions after his son dies under suspicious circumstances while working in British intelligence. This film is based on a novel by John Hale, and it pulls back the curtain on something MI6 rarely wants discussed in public: internal failure, cover-ups, and the way institutions close ranks when exposed. The story centers on a young signals intelligence officer who uncovers evidence of a mole inside the system. Not a rumor, not paranoia. Actual signs that secrets are leaking. He tries to raise alarms. Instead of praise, he gets isolation, pressure, and then he dies in what is ruled a suicide. But it does not sit right. His father begins digging, and what unfolds is a picture of a service more concerned with reputation than truth. This is the secret. Intelligence agencies sell competence to the public. They project stability. But when cracks appear, they can become defensive and opaque. The film does not scream. It simmers. Meetings behind closed doors, carefully worded statements, polite denials. That is what makes it believable. No dramatic villain monologue, just quiet obstruction. What it exposes about MI6 culture is the tension between secrecy and accountability. If everything is classified, then mistakes can be buried. If operations are shielded from scrutiny, then whistleblowers become threats, not heroes. I'm going to take a side here. This is one of the bravest spy films because it is not about foreign enemies. It is about internal rot. The idea that loyalty to country can clash with loyalty to truth. And the tone is bleak, because it suggests that even when you uncover the truth, the machine might grind forward unchanged. The system absorbs scandal. It survives. That is terrifying in a very grounded way. No fantasy, no clever gadgets. Just the uncomfortable thought that intelligence agencies are human institutions with human flaws. And when those flaws are exposed, the first instinct is often silence. If you want to understand real MI6 vulnerability, this is it. Not glamorous betrayal, not daring escapes. Just bureaucracy protecting itself. And that can be colder than any spy thriller showdown. Number 1. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. This is the coldest, the quietest, the one that feels like you accidentally wandered into a real briefing room. Based on the novel by Joan le Carré, this film is about a mole at the very top of British intelligence. Not a low-level clerk, not some rogue field agent, one of the men running the circus. That is what MI6 is called here. The circus, and it is rotting from the inside. George Smiley is brought out of forced retirement to investigate. No big speeches, no loud accusations. Just a slow, methodical peeling back of layers. Files. Old operations. Failed missions. Every clue suggests that Moscow has been fed secrets directly from the highest office. What this exposes is brutal. MI6 is political. It is ambitious. It is fragile. The leadership jockeys for power while pretending everything is stable. And while they play status games, the Soviets sit comfortably inside the walls. There is a failed operation in Hungary that kicks off the suspicion. An agent walks into a trap. Why? Because someone tipped off the other side. That moment sets the tone. British intelligence is not losing because the enemy is smarter. It is losing because it is compromised. The film shows how paranoia spreads. Friends look at each other differently. Conversations become coded. Silence becomes suspicious. The institution begins eating itself because trust has evaporated. And here is what makes it feel real. No one is flashy. Offices are dull. Rooms are beige. People whisper. For the sense that intelligence work is a long gray war fought in filing cabinets and whispered meetings. Bond sells fantasy. This sells doubt. And doubt is far more dangerous. So here is the truth. MI6 was never just martinis and fast cars. It was class blind spots, double agents, quiet cover-ups, human weakness wrapped in tailored suits. These stories matter because they show the cracks. And once you see the cracks, you cannot unsee them. The real spy game is colder and far less glamorous.